So in 2011 I was asked to be National Women's and Equalities Officer for our political party, the Scottish National Party in Scotland, and that's because equality is at the heart of absolutely everything that we do. And when we looked around in terms of our representation in that election, which was an excellent victory for the SNP, the numbers weren't adding up in terms of our women representation, and we knew we had to do something about it. So I worked very hard to pull together a gender equality strategy, which involved having a national women's officer who headed up a network of women's officers across the country in all of the different branches of our political party in Scotland. And that allowed me to engage with those women's officers with a number of ideas in mind. First of all, to identify up and coming women politicians who might be aspiring to become involved in politics and needed some guidance and mentoring. Also for those women who don't want to get involved in elected roles but want to support or campaign and learn how to do that too. So, you know, people come into politics or join a political party for a variety of reasons. Not everybody wants to stand for election, and we can all understand why that might be the case. But every voice is valued and everybody brings experience, life experience to political party. And for political parties to be successful and to be effective, they need to keep in touch with the needs and requirements of the people who they seek to serve. And therefore, engaging with our membership at all levels is hugely important to make sure that we are able to help frame a society that's most conducive to the public good and advancing the cause ultimately for the SNP of independence, but of course equality for everybody. It really was it's a continuing, ongoing process of engagement. We're not yet where we want or need to be, and I don't think striving for equality will ever come to an end. It will be a perfect world if we have an equal world. So it's certainly a work in progress, particularly in relation to the general election, which saw the success of many of our parliamentarians at Westminster. We again made sure that we were giving as much support as we possibly could to women who are thinking to become candidates, because it's quite a long process. First of all, you have to pass vetting and be considered by the party as someone who can represent the party and holds relevant ideals to take into the future. Then you have to be selected at constituency level by the members of the branch in the area in which you wish to stand. Now, in many of our cases, in my case for example, it was myself against seven male potential candidates, and we had to go through a series of hustings and public meetings, and then the members would vote and decide who they wanted to be their candidate. So I was fortunate enough to win that election, then go on to win the actual election proper, the general election campaign. And in the women in our party stood in 20 out of 44 contests. So in all, they stood in 44 contests and we won 20. So that just goes to show that where women were standing in the SNP, they were winning this election contest, and beyond that, all won their seats bar one. I mean, in terms of the future and how we continue to work in the upcoming Scottish parliamentary elections, we decided to take some positive action, because some of our elder parliamentarians were retiring from the Scottish Parliament. There was a potential for them to be replaced by men, so we needed to make sure that if we wanted to increase our numbers, we had to take positive action to ensure those women were replaced by women. So what we did was, the National Executive Committee of the party, which I'm a member, decided with conferences, the whole party membership's acquiescence, that where women were departing, in fact where any MSP was departing, they would be replaced by a woman. So we had all women shortlists. Where that leaves us now is we are likely to have pretty much 50-50 representation come the Scottish Parliament elections next month, and of the new candidates standing, 68% are women. So you have to put, everybody wants equality and everybody talks about it. Putting it into practice and making it a reality is something that we are determined to do, and we're very proud of our role in doing so. Well, like my 4 poor children who've been born into politics, since being able to speak and walk because I'm so involved in it, I too was born into politics insofar as my father was the first at local level, local government, a councillor of Asian origin in the whole of the United Kingdom. So I had an automatic interest in politics. I went on to do a master's in economics and international law at Edinburgh University, and then on to do a law degree, and so retained an interest in politics as so many lawyers do. when I stood for election in the general election, I knew if I won, I would be the first woman from Scotland elected from the Black and Asian minority ethnic community to any of the parliaments, Westminster, Scotland and the European Parliament, which is great in and of itself because you have to have a first of something. However, you know, where we are now, and that was 2015, we've got a long way to go if we want to be truly representative of society. And I think our parliament should look like our people, so whether it's in terms of our BAME makeup or makeup of people with disabilities or LGBTI or whatever it might be, we need to make sure that we look like that, and you know, the work to do that doesn't ever come to an end. Of course, it comes with challenges. There have been many times as a candidate that I wondered why I was doing it, if I wanted to continue, because yes, we all know that there are issues of misogyny, sexism for all women indeed in politics, but then if you add on racism and prejudice, that just makes it worse, and it's really difficult to do because you're attacked from lots of different angles. But then you face a choice. It's whether you continue to work to do good from the outside as part of a pressure group, or whether you stand up and try and seize power where it exists, which is within our parliaments, which is where we have a platform, a really important platform to stand up for ourselves, for the constituencies which we represent, and then the greater good of our country, and then beyond, which is why we're engaging with UN Women, because at the end of the day, we want equality for everybody, because that's the only way the world becomes a better place, is if we make sure that we are sharing our skills, knowledge and ambition across a much broader base than simply ourselves. So at Westminster, I'm part of the International Affairs team. I'm spokesperson for trade and investment. I'm part of the UK delegation to the Council of Europe. That allows me to engage internationally with many people, female parliamentarians and indeed all parliamentarians from countries across the world, to engage with Westminster either via the IPU or the CPA and a number of organisations that exist. The benefit of that is, of course, you can share good practice, have good ideas and learn from each other, because you know, nobody holds the prize for being the best at doing anything. I think what we need to accept is that we can learn from each other, and sometimes those countries where you might automatically assume they're not as far ahead of the game as some Western democracies, in many cases they shame us into realisation that actually we need to learn something from them. So part of the reason for our visit and our engagement with UN Women in particular is because I really fundamentally want to set up the idea of a global summit or a meeting of women parliamentarians to discuss best practice in relation to how we get more women into politics, how we make sure that our policies enable women to become involved, whether it's via childcare or other caring responsibilities that women might have, access to education. All of these things are really key. And beyond that, looking at where women sit from a geopolitical perspective. So what's happening in the world at the moment, what are the issues facing us, extremism and terrorism? Absolutely, women need to have a much more fundamental, front-facing, outward-facing role in relation to tackle that. Because to be frank, men have had the opportunity for decades and we're not where we need to be. So I think it's a prime opportunity for women who have positions of influence to take the stage and storm ahead with their ideas of how to make the world a better, a safer and place where there's greater understanding and therefore less requirement for conflict, because women don't like conflict. Therefore I think women can help solve them where they exist.